Pete
I didn't get
Hegseth
that.
is ending offensive cyber operations in Russia as of now.
I don't know why he was doing that.
Old Whiskey Pete has been doing a great job as the new Secretary of Defense. Not for us Americans, of course, but for his real constituents, the good folks from the land of bears and vodka. Trump's boss, Vladimir Putin, has apparently told him to put the kibosh on all cyber attacks coming from the US towards Russia. Pete Hegseth, like the drunken traitor he is, managed to stumble into his office long enough to put out the order, after, I'm sure, replacing whatever clear liquid that is in his glass.
Anyway, what I love about this is it could be water, it could be gin, and you don't know. And I'm not going to tell you. But if it's whiskey, then you know. So I agree. I do enjoy some whiskey.
If you're liking the video, make sure to like the video and double check that you're subscribed. People across the intelligence community are shocked to hear that the United States is putting a halt to their cybersecurity attacks on Russia, seemingly in an attempt to bring Russia to the negotiation table using the carrot of the US no longer fighting back against Russia interfering in our infrastructure and elections.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered U.S. Cyber Command to stop offensive operations against Russia. U.S. Cyber Command is the military's cyber wing conducting offensive and defensive online operations. U.S. media reporting the news on Sunday, though Russian state media announced the development on Saturday, linking it to Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's heated Oval Office meeting.
The head of the Pentagon, according to a specialized publication, ordered the U.S. Cyber Command to stop planning attacks against Russia. This is the result of yesterday's meeting between Trump and Zelensky, which turned into a complete failure for Kyiv.
But the New York Times reports that the instructions were issued before Friday's meeting as part of an effort to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin into talks on the war in Ukraine. Pauses in military operations during sensitive negotiations are not uncommon, though not without risks.
And it's not like Pete Hegseth was ever hard on Russia. Here he is during an interview refusing to say that Russia invaded Ukraine.
Fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Right, when your neighbor kicks down your fence and starts taking your backyard, it's a very complicated situation indeed. But hey, we don't know how many Pete put down that day, so everything might be a confusing situation for him. And honestly, the craziest part of all of this is that even Fox News is having to admit that the United States is cozying itself up to Russia. Watch this clip as a Republican representative from Florida learns what Pete Hegseth did and has to quickly denounce the move.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, he's ordered a pause to offensive cyber operations in Russia. Congressman, why are we doing this and why are we doing it now?
I'm sorry, who did that?
Pete
I didn't get
Hegseth
that.
is ending offensive cyber operations in Russia as of now. And
I don't know why he was doing that. The Russians are attacking us every single day. The Chinese are attacking us every single day. I don't think you signal the Russians that, hey, we're going to unilaterally withdraw from this space. If they can keep attacking us, and they do every single day, they should be fearful of our capacity to inflict damage on them. So I really don't understand where that's coming from.
it makes it look like we're moving to Russia's side, doesn't it? Or I hate to use the word, but tilting towards Russia. Looks like that.
Well, that would be a mistake on my side. Look,
Yeah, you know what? It sure does look like we are tilting towards Russia. It sure looks like we're pausing all of our defenses and offensive attacks on Russia so that we can bring them to a negotiation table wherein they get the territory they've been invading for the last 3 years and don't have to promise not to try to take the rest of it. It sure does look like the United States has sold out its moral values in order to align ourselves with an authoritarian oligarchy. And this is just the first Fox News clip that I have to show you of these dopes having the worst time ever trying to justify Trump's alignment with Putin. Because as Senator Chris Murphy expertly points out in this clip, the Republicans are completely aligned with what Trump is doing. They're stuck between the rock of anti-Russian Red Scare propaganda and the hard place of Trump cozying up to Putin. And in reality, they want to move on from communist fear-mongering and instead initiate the final steps of the process of turning the American Democratic Republic into a form of government that more resembles the Russian oligarchy.
Everyone who signs up to work for Donald Trump is signing up for one single project, and that is the transition of American democracy to a kind of kleptocratic oligarchy in which the billionaires rule, in which they get to steal from regular Americans. And if that's the domestic project, then the way that you normalize that kind of government is to associate yourself with similar governments abroad, like the Kremlin. So it's all part of one big domestic project. The foreign policy, the affection for dictatorships abroad is, in effect, a means towards transitioning our democracy to something very, very different, something we've never, ever seen before in this country.
And again, back over on Fox News, they are having a hell of a time pretending like that's not exactly what's going on. They brought this Russian reporter on, probably thinking that he was going to help them glaze up their boss, Putin. But in reality, he points out that Putin is a violent dictator. Watch how this Fox News host decides to push back on him, and how insane his final justification for all of this is.
Looking at Mr. Trump's actions, it makes me really sorry, because I think that it seems to me that Mr. Trump doesn't actually understand that Putin is not his friend, and that Putin could not be a friend to the civilized world, and that it's so important to call the things by their names. And the name of Mr. Putin is dictator. He started a terrible war in Ukraine, and I think it's very important for the United States and for its allies to do anything it could to help Ukraine not become the part of this aggressive regime of Vladimir Putin.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Sparks in just one moment, who originally hails from Ukraine. But I do have to push back for just one moment, Tikhon. I think that the conversation today moves beyond whether or not Donald Trump thinks Vladimir Putin is either a friend or a dictator. It seems to me that what he's pushing for is peace. And peace isn't accomplished by getting hung up on who has, honestly, the moral high ground.
I don't know what Republican think tank came up with this genius "we just want peace" narrative, but anybody with a working brainstem can understand that you can't have peace with somebody who's constantly threatening you. And of course, here's Senator Chris Murphy pointing out this Republican strategy, and at the end of this, reminding all of us that the Republicans were never friends of Ukraine.
Over the weekend, there were a handful of Republicans that said the easy thing, that Vladimir Putin is a dictator and Zelensky is not. But let's remember, congressional Republicans held up Ukraine aid for over 6 months, allowed for Russia to go on the offensive. So even before Donald Trump was president, congressional Republicans were not doing the things necessary to support the most vital fight in defense of democracy in the world today. So I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't have a lot of faith that Republicans are going to do anything except just offer some mild criticism of Vladimir Putin.
So really none of us should be surprised that the Republicans are continuing to be slimy little rats. We got Russians and Nazis crawling all up through the White House right now. The Republicans of the 20th century are spinning around in their graves so fast they're contributing to global warming. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.